Hi, everyone. This is Isatis.
And this is Raphael, and welcome back to Relationships Done Different. Tonight's show is going to be about relationships as a tool for self-development. There's always a bigger picture.
You know, I sorry to interrupt you, but I'm very excited about this particular show because it's something, if you've been listening for a while, that you've heard me say many times about relationship being your own personal self-development course. The things that we speak about here are different perceptual realities. It's a different way of viewing life. It's a different way of framing what it is that you do on a day-to-day basis. That's why we call it relationship done different, because not only are relationships done different, but our lives are done different when you start to adopt a different way of perceiving everything in your life. The majority of people grow up thinking and feeling and responding and reacting to everything pretty much like a clone, like their parents did, like their siblings did, like the internet told them to, like the TV did, or whatever your biggest input of information was. And I'm going to give you an example here because it's such a powerful demonstration to me. As you know, if you've listened before, that we have little four-legged children. We have four of them exactly. Some people call them fur babies. We call them our kids. And one of them is Vijaya. Vijaya is a Laotian. He's a dog. And they're called little lion dogs. And he has this big mane, and his little booty is shaved, and he's got little pom-poms on his back feet because his legs are shaved back there as well. And he is, oh my gosh, he's the most loving, gentle, sweet, snuggly thing you've ever imagined. And he is so smart. And I know I've talked about him before, and I could do a whole show just on him. But the bottom line is that he is an integral part of my heart and my life, actually, both of us. And a while ago, we also acquired a toy poodle. And this little guy his name is Carazos. Sometimes I call him Karaji. And he is black now, but he will be silver when he grows up because they are born black and then they lighten depending upon whatever, but he's black and silver. So he is now 5 months old. Vijaya is 5 years old. And Karaja came here when he was just a little over 9 weeks old. And he has become really steadfast with Vijaya. And here's to the degree that he has. Karaji weighs about 7 pounds. Vijaya weighs about 13 pounds. And they have been together, of course, since Karaja has been here. And what has happened is he has become his clone. And I am not kidding. The way that
Karaji has become Kajaya's clone.
Yes, thank you. Karaja has become Kajaya's clone, and in doing so, these are just some of the things that he does. First of all, Vijaya jumps up on his back legs a lot, up to the counter so he can see, or he'll jump up on my leg to try to get my attention. Karaja does the exact same thing. I have been hand feeding Vijaya for several years now because he has worked a lot in performance, meaning that he does obedience and rally and scent work and all different kinds of things that some of you may know what that means and some of you may not. But the bottom line is it creates a deeper bond with your animal, with your dog. And so I've been feeding him that way. Well, Karaja has seen me hand feed him, and now he literally will not eat his breakfast or his dinner unless I hand feed him. He demands that he is treated exactly like like Vijaya. And so he will take his toys and hold the same toys that Vijaya does. He follows him around. They sleep together in the same crate, which is open. They don't even have to sleep in a crate, but he sleeps in there together. When Vijaya lays down, he lays down. I mean, they're literally like mirrors of each other. Like he's like a chameleon. And the point of this story is not just that it makes me excited to talk about them, but also the fact that this is what happens to us. We become what our environment shows us. So just as an awareness for you, we are 50% DNA driven and we're 50% environmentally driven. So the 50% environmental that you grew up with the influences that you had from your mother, father, caretaker, whomever it was, and the rest of the people in your life, are having a very deep impact on you right here, right now, today. And what's interesting about that is that we grow up with all these things, many of which we don't really like so much. We don't really find them to be as effective and supportive, and they don't seem to create success for us in pretty much any area of our life at the highest level that we could possibly have that. Now, I take exception to those that are different. I know a couple of people that have had the most amazing childhoods and the most amazing parents, and they are amazing kids themselves, which, by the way, is not a guarantee. Because I also know lots of kids that are grown up in that way, and they're not so awesome. But at any rate, what is important here is that you have been heavily influenced by your environment. Now, when you see that you are not having your life be the way that you would like it to be, maybe there's an area of your life that you would like to be a little bit more successful. And what about the area of your life that you'd like to be happier about? What about the part of you that would like to communicate more openly and more boldly and more forcefully? And what about the area of your life where you would like to feel like you had what it was that you wanted and you were at peace regardless of what was happening? I mean, there's lots of examples I could give you. And what is going to happen as you move along in life and as you listen to this is you're going to notice that these things are things that you would like to change. Most people come to me for coaching. They come to the retreats, they come to the meetups, they go into the workshops, all the different kinds of things, the online programs. We have so many online programs, and people, they devour these because they are looking, they are seeking for some kind of change. So if you take a moment, are you seeking for some kind of change? Well, I'm pretty sure you are, or you wouldn't be listening to this right now. So here's the great news. Relationships are your personal self-development gurus. Yay! And that doesn't mean that you have to be in a significant, quote unquote, or romantic relationship. I mean relationship with your children, relationship with your parents, whether they're here or not, relationship with your boss. All these different relationships are showing you how you can become the amazing person you would like to be because they are self-development activities in motion. Start to look at every relationship as a self-development course. And when you do that, you will start to have appreciation and a completely different perception about the person that you're interacting with. So before I just talk in a monologue the whole time, Raphael, is there something that you
I
want
love
to
to
fit
hear
in?
you talk about this. But what I was thinking about is, okay, you're in a relationship and maybe it's not going just the way you would like it. How in the world is that going to serve my personal development? And what am I supposed to get out of it?
Well, when you see someone, now for some of you, this is old hat. For some of you, it might be a new concept. But the question I would ask you, as I always do, is what if she said had the possibility of being true? Or what if I adopted this and I saw what would happen if I lived this way? I will tell you, I've worked with thousands and thousands of people, and in working with them, they have decided whether or not they would like to adopt a different perspective of life.
Can you give an example of that? Because
Well, what does that mean?
Give an example of what you were just saying, because I was not really clear when you about how that was going.
You mean when I work with somebody and they've chosen to adopt a different way of of being in their life.
Yes, that's right.
So, okay, I'll give you a perfect example. Just before we started to record this podcast, I completed a coaching call with someone. And this person, I've coached with them for about 6 months. And this person, when this person first came to me, they were really, really uncomfortable at work. They are very well trained and they have lots of degrees about a lot of things, but they still were not happy because the people that they were working with did not seem to accept this person. The people that the things that this person was doing did not seem to be getting the accolades or the feedback that this person wanted. And there was just not the satisfaction that was going on pretty much anywhere in the person's life. So we have been working together for some time, and throughout this time this person has decided, or did decide, that she would take on the principles that it was that I speak about on these podcasts all the time. And I will tell you today, just today, this person said, I don't even know where my life would be today had I not been working with you and being shown different ways of thinking. I look back at my past. I look back at my childhood. I look back at my culture. I look back at all of the things that have influenced me in my life. And I see that I am now in my 40s and I have lived a life that has not been the life that has been the most joyful, the most secure, the most confident. And because of the things that have been presented to me, and because I have taken the coaching and I've switched the way I look at things, I act differently in certain circumstances. I ask myself, what's my payoff for this? I do the things that you have suggested. This person now is, interestingly, took a moment and was going to leave the company that she was with, tried working under different bosses within the same company. Nothing was working. And as she continued to do the things that were suggested, suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, she is now on a specific project where she is in love. She is so in love with her work. She's so in love with the people that she's working with. She's so in love with herself. She is feeling happiness that she has never felt in her life, that she had really been in doubt that she did what it was that she was doing as her career choice because her parents told her that she could and that she should, and she was never happy, and now she's loving. And that's just one example out of about 10 that I could give you just for her. So does that make sense?
How did she use relationships to get to that place? I understand you've been working with her, okay, and you've been doing all those things.
So here's what's occurred. So she was having difficulty with one of her bosses, and the boss that was above her boss was somebody that she wanted to get to know, because the boss that was her direct boss was not, in her mind, listening to what it was that she was wanting. So she was terrified to talk to even her boss, let alone the boss's boss. And so I said, okay, so what's your fear around this? And she said, I'm afraid to talk to my boss's boss because this person doesn't know me, and I'm afraid that they're going to go back to my boss and say bad things or whatever, and I don't want to complain about my boss because that's going to make me look bad, and I just don't want to go there. And I said, okay, so let's just look at that fear. What would happen if you walked through that, and what if it turned out to be really awesome? She said, well, that'd be really great, but I just can't imagine that it would. And so I said, okay, so here's your challenge for the week. And this was many months ago, when we were working on this particular issue. And I said, so your challenge for the week is, between now and the next time we speak, I'd like you to go find a way to talk to your boss's boss, not about anything, but just go into your boss's office and say, hi, I am blah, 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 and I work doing blah, 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 and I just wanted to tell you that I think that you have built and you manage an amazing company. And I just wanted you to know that I appreciate that. And she said, well, I can do that. And in fact, she said that, and then she texted me later and said, I'm not sure I can do that. That's like really scary. It's going to look like really weird. I said, be weird. Just go be weird. So the bottom line is she walked through her fear. She went to her boss's office, her boss's office, and she just went in and said something like that. And he was so touched by what she said that he stood up, he came around the other side of the desk, he shook her hand, he said, you know, what you said has really made a difference for me, and I greatly appreciate that, and I'm going to remember you. And she walked out of that room feeling like she was empowered. She had walked through a big fear. She had been acknowledged for who she was and what she did, and that changed everything for her. So how that relates to what it is that we're speaking about today is that her relationship with the boss's boss was one of self-development. She used that circumstance to conquer a fear, to speak her truth, to give acknowledgement, to do all the things that she was afraid to do and would have never, ever even thought of doing, let alone do, until she did it. And it kicked her up another notch. And we had many circumstances like that where she confronted her fear, she confronted her fear, she confronted her fear. And every one of those enhanced her awareness that she was a really good person at what it is that she did, and that her job factor deserved to be joyful and playful and all these other kinds of things. And out of that internal shift, she created this amazing project that she's now working on with a whole new team, and she's walking on clouds, and she's been this way for several months now.
That's really a beautiful story about how she conquered her fear. And so what I'm really seeing here is that relationships, however they kind of show up, her relationship with her boss, the relationship with the boss's boss in this example, and I'm sure probably with her parents and a few others, all created a rub. There was a big rub. And when she moved through that rub, when she moved through that distress, through that uncomfortableness, that's when she had the greatest growth.
And that's absolutely accurate. So when you're with someone, let's say you're with a partner, and the partner is just really irritating you. You know, they don't take out the trash. You never got to tell your trash story the last time we were speaking on that call.
I thought you were going to tell on me for not taking the trash out yesterday, but it's okay. All right, we'll let that one go because I like to be here.
Oh, I just had a memory of that last podcast that we did, and we were talking about trashy stories, so to speak. Okay, you guys, go listen to that one before this. I think it was called, what was that one called? It was something, Payoff. It was about what's your payoff. So anyway, sometimes I kind of go off the reservation, and that's probably one of the greatest gifts that Raphael brings me, especially with the podcast, as he kind of brings me back to earth, or the reservation, as they say. So where you have
She's
the
cute,
gift,
isn't she? She really is cute.
so where it is that you can go when you are with somebody who is just really irritating, and let's say, like I was starting to say, is that they don't take out the trash. Well, that's a trigger for you. So I would ask you to look at, why is that a trigger for you? So when you look inside, you're going to probably see that you want to be able to control people. Just a guess. But most of us want to control.
Careful.
And when we want to control people, then we start to be really judgmentals. And when we're judgmental, judgment always comes with fear. Always remember that. Whenever you're in judgment, you're in fear. Whenever you're in judgment, you're in fear. Whenever you're in judgment, you're in fear. Now, your mind may be saying, oh, that is ridiculous. I'm judging this, and I don't get how that can be fear. Okay, let's say you're judging the clothes that somebody's wearing. What's that have to do with fear? Well, what it has to do with fear is that many times we'll project ourselves onto that person. And if we think something doesn't look acceptable according to our own value system, then we project ourselves and we think, oh my gosh, that person just looks like insane or looks ridiculous or whatever. And what comes up underneath that is, if I look like that, people would shun me, people would reject me, people would judge me. And what does that mean? It means I'm not loved and lovable. I'm not acceptable for whom it is that I am. And all kinds of things go on. So we judge because on a deeper level, it's what we're afraid of. We're afraid of something underneath that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So really what you're saying, and the whole concept is one of mirroring. How we feel about ourselves, we usually project out onto someone else, and then then it's kind of ugly.
And then it starts going downhill from there. That's exactly right. So the self-development is that you look at everybody that you have a judgment with, and you look inside yourself. You come back to yourself because they are that mirror, and you find out what's going on inside of you. Trust me, this is not so easy, especially when you get to really deep things. I've worked with some people literally for years, people that I've been working with for a long time, and they're just now starting to see that their brother or their sister or their boss or their parent or someone had something to do with showing them what it is that's going on. So this is where we get the gift of being able to reframe what it is that we have going on inside of our heads. So when we notice that, let's just say that we're controlling we're judging and we're controlling them, it's because we have some concern. And when we have that concern / fear, then we can look at, what am I really afraid of? What's going to happen? Your superficial mind is going to say, well, I'm afraid the house is going to really smell because somebody doesn't take out the trash. Or I'm going to have to take out the trash because I can't stand it being like this. And
or because my father used to make me take the trash out when I didn't want to take the trash out.
Yeah. So in the example that you started to share in the last podcast, do you want to share what came up with you? Do you remember what it was that we were even talking about? Because you said that it was about the payoff. You didn't want to. What's your payoff when you don't want to do something? So you didn't want to take out the trash. You remember what that was?
I just used the trash as an example, but I'd like to defer that because we have a question today that is going to absolutely be right on point with that. So let's save that for the end.
See how clever he is.
Pretty cool, huh?
He gets away from needing to really be real in the moment with what's going on, but that's okay. We'll answer it in the question.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's
of
good
course.
Because I will not be able to wait until then.
So, when we are in a relationship with anyone, we have them there in our lives because there's something that we want to learn. They're bringing us a gift. Are you looking for the gift, or are you looking for a way to make them go away? Most of the time, we're looking for a way to make them go away.
Because it reduces our pain.
Absolutely. That's a really good point, because when we see somebody who is not the way we think they ought to be, then we become distressed instead of allowing them to be the way that they are. So the minute we're wanting them to be different, then we are again back to control, and we're trying to control, then we're not going to be happy, because in case you haven't noticed, you can't make people be what you think they ought to be. You can't make people be what you want them to be. So my intelligence would say, duh. Then what's the point of continuing to try to get people to be what I'd like them to be? It's irrelevant what our intelligence says. We do it anyway. We just continue to try to make people be what we want them to be until we reach that place where we go, okay, what am I going to do here? What's my payoff here? Is my payoff to keep on beating my head against the wall, or is it to let it go? And some people have a line in the sand. And if you have a line in the sand, then that's okay. But look at that line in the sand and see where else in your life you are shutting down the ability to grow from that experience.
Whew, that is so true. Oh, I just think of all of the examples that we've been through in the many years that we've been together. And there have been times when Isatis has said certain things to me, albeit lovingly, that really, really pissed me off. And when I could reflect on it and I could see it in a non-hurt and from an open, expansive, loving place and see that it was said with compassion, then everything opened up, and everything can open up if we're willing to use the relationship as a opening to see what we otherwise are not aware of. And that's the big key. You know, you were just talking before, if we're not aware of these things, then how can we change anything? And it's these relations, it's a relationship that allows us to become aware, because that rub, that irritation, that trigger, it's right in your face.
And I understand that sometimes what's being activated is not a direct experience. And I'll give you an example of that. When I was younger and I saw my parents fighting over my dad cheating on my mother. Actually, I heard it because I was on the stairway. They didn't know that I was hearing. And what happened is, in that moment, I took on that I can't trust men. Now, as I went through relationship after relationship, and I found that men kept cheating on me because I was drawing that towards me, but I couldn't see that it had anything to do with me. It just looked like them doing something to me. I felt like I was a victim. And when I started investigating this within myself, what I learned was that I had a very deep core pain that was consuming a lot of energy inside of my body. And I kept on bringing people to me so I could move through that pain, so I could work through that. And in doing so, I could be relieved of it, but I couldn't be relieved of it as long as I was shutting it away and suppressing it. So when I got to the relationship where I am now with Raphael, when I came into this relationship, I was straightforward about my insecurities and the things that I was working on. 20 years ago, I was even more aware than probably a lot of people. And I said, this is my baggage. This is what I'm working on. And to be fully transparent, Raphael, in the days that I met him, was kind of a flirtatious kind of guy, and it used to really trigger me, and it made me really feel uncomfortable, and I would talk about it. And I finally reached a place where in that experience, I was finally able to see that that was going on because of what was going on inside of me. My own insecurity about being left, being abandoned, being hurt, and I was projecting it out there, and he was supporting me by helping me see how I was dealing with that kind of energy. And so when I was willing to feel the feelings of pain, of hurt, of abandonment, or whatever, and I took it away from making it about him, and I brought it back to myself, I was able to move through that. And it's taken a long time for that to occur. So just know that depending upon how long you've had it and how deep the pain is going to be completely dependent upon how quickly it evaporates or moves away. That's one of the reasons people do coaching so much, is because it helps accelerate that. It's a lot harder to do it on your own. But at any rate, if you can, you can, if you are willing to start to just look at each relationship. In fact, right this minute, think about something that is that somebody you know does that's stressful for you. It just irritates you for whatever reason. Take a minute and think about that. And as you think about that, I want you to now think about where in your life that might be true for you. In other words, let's just say that you know somebody that I'm thinking of somebody that I've coached in the past that actually has a real issue with one of her siblings. And that sibling always is seemingly to her is acting not all that loving and kind of putting her off and acting like she's insignificant. And when I was working with her, I asked her, have you ever acted like somebody else was not significant? Have you ever been mad at someone and just kind of looked down at them, judged them, shined them on, so to speak? And this person had to stop. At first, she wanted to be very defensive about it, and then she decided that she would look a little deeper, and she realized that she had done that. There were people in her life more than once that she had done that with, and she didn't feel good about it, although she thought she did at the time. And so, what was happening? The sibling was showing her a piece of herself that she had not made peace with or had not resolved. And so it came up for her so she could resolve it and let it go. These are the kinds of things that you start to have awareness about, and you start to get into a place where every person you look at that you have any kind of feeling, and it can even be happy feelings, look at where they are mirroring to you some part of your life, and you will see that your self-development guru is always there to support you in being all that you're capable of being.
Cool. We're going to take a break in a moment, but I have one thing I just wanted to say. When you were speaking about that whole experience with your parents and the cheating, and you took on that men couldn't be trusted because in your past, what is now your past, you had that experience. And the biggest piece for me in all the relationship work that we've done and the way we teach it is that the past does not, I'll repeat, the past does not equal the present, and the past does not equal the future unless we let it. And with relationships, bringing that up with that rub, to see that we can break the bonds, the things that's tying us to the past, if we're aware of it. And that's what I would like to leave you with today.
And I hear what it is that you're saying, and on another show we can speak about the fact that we have a neural net of patterns, beliefs, feelings that are literally ingrained in a cellular memory. So intellectually, we know that the past does not equal the present. On the other hand, the body remembers, and there is a neural net that we're wrapped within due to our past history, and that's another whole layer, another whole level of letting go that we can talk about sometime.
So basically what you're saying, it's not only the awareness, which is step number one, there's then the energetics or that neural net thing that you're talking about, that encapsulates it and makes it harder to break free of.
Very true.
Right. Okay, well, I think we've gone a little over our time, but so what? We were having a good time, right?
You got it.
All right. Okay, so we're going to take a short break now, and we will be right back with a really, really good question having to do with payoffs that came as a result of last week's show. So we'll be right back. Okay, we're back right now. And here's the question that we got from Marcia S. I don't know what her last name is. So I listened to your podcast about payoffs, and I understood what you were saying. When I was thinking about how I am mean and sometimes even cruel to my partner, I just can't even fathom what my payoff could be. My question, how can I be sure or even understand what my payoff might be?
Well, Marcia, this is something that most of the time most people don't really know the answer to that. They don't know how to find that inside themselves. So you can start with realizing that if you are unkind to someone, and this, listen to this, everyone, from maybe you haven't felt like you've been cruel, but perhaps you haven't extended the highest level of kindness or support or compassion to someone at some time in your life. Maybe you've screamed at somebody, maybe you've yelled at them for whatever reason, including your children or your dog or your whatever. And always know that when you are projecting outward with something that causes pain to wherever the projection mark is, a partner, for example, or an animal or whatever, then it is because you have that inside of yourself. And when you have that inside of yourself and it is not being dealt with, when you don't feel it through, when you don't understand it, see it, or know it's even there, naturally, by nature, we want to bring that up and we want to, like a hot potato, get rid of it. So there's a saying from the Course in Miracles: we are never angry for the reason that we think. We are never angry for the reason that we think. So when this anger and this frustration and this stuff comes out of you, it's because there's something else going on inside of you. And most of the time it will be because that person is mirroring something to you, actually, that is a very tender spot for you, and you have not allowed it to be free. In other words, you're still judging yourself for it, whether you're conscious of it or not. So the most important thing that you can do is to ask yourself, what is it that I'm really angry about? Just ask that question internally. And what about this is so distressing to me? And ask yourself, spend some time contemplating, and notice that every time you're even mildly irritated, to ask yourself, what's underneath that? What's underneath that? What's underneath that? And you can also literally ask rhetorically to the universe, what am I angry about here? What's really going on? Become inquisitive and become curious about what it is. Everyone is always coming from the best place that they know how, but that doesn't mean that the best place can't be upped to a whole new level of awareness and response rather than just reaction. So that's what I would encourage you to do, is to start to ask from an introspective place, what is it that's going on that's beyond what it is that your mind knows, and you will suddenly have awarenesses just boom, pop up for you.
I just had this thought, and I never really had thought about it before. But when you were speaking, could it be that the payoff for being really nasty, or like what Marsha was saying, is really so that it gets you to your, I'll just use this as a term, your boiling point, so that you can finally really see what's going on and then deal with it. So the payoff itself is just getting you to the flashpoint.
Well, it's also that, I mean, I could go into a lot of different reasons, but in addition to what you're saying, Raphael, it's also very possibly that if we don't feel loved and lovable, we will do whatever we can to push people away from us. Somebody is loving us, being kind to us, being gentle with us, and compassionate on every level, and it feels so foreign and so wrong to our belief systems and to the way that we grew up. We can't accept it. We don't deal well with it. And therefore, we will punish ourselves by punishing someone else so they will reject us, go away, which will fulfill that belief system that I'm not loved and lovable. So that's another reason that we do that kind of thing.
So my second awareness, just from this whole, I'm loving this. I'm really learning a lot in this show. And that is that it really isn't important to, maybe it's not really important to totally understand exactly what your payoff is, but just go with the process of being with it, seeing the trigger, and then allowing that to come through. Because when we ask the questions, those rhetorical questions that we ask at the end of the show, we don't necessarily get an answer in that moment, but we will get an answer at some point.
And that's very true. That's when we send our mind like the Google search engine. We just send it out there, and then you get universal wisdom that comes back. Speaking of which, is it time for me to ask the question?
It is. I just have to say one more thing. But when you ask that question, watch out, because it's coming back at you.
Yes. And know that it will be in your best interest, because the universe is always, always conspiring to make your life more awesome than you could ever dream or imagine. So here's our question for today. What would it take for me to see the gift in this? What would it take for me to see the gift in this? When you are confronted with someone triggering you, rather than just yell back at them or react spontaneously with no rhyme or reason, what if you just said to yourself, what would it take for me to see the gift in this? And if you repeat that to yourself over and over again, and you turn away from the fight at that moment that you could start, then you will find that your life will continue to change and evolve past the pain and suffering to a place of open-hearted compassion and love. And you truly will see your relationship as a gift of self-development, because the bottom line is everything in your life is here to support you to become more aware of the things that you're not aware of.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, well, it's about that time to say goodnight, goodbye, whatever time you're listening to this thing. And next week, Isatis, I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm calling an audible from our original schedule, if it's okay with you. And when you were talking about the neural net with regard to how we process and bring up stuff from the past, I found that fascinating. And I would like to do our next show on that. And we'll just defer what we were going to do next week till the following week. So I don't have a title yet because it just came to me. But we will be talking, if that's okay with you, about the neural net and how that serves as a further thing we have to deal with in order to get through to what's really holding us back.
Okay.
She's really good like that. And what's really cool about Issa T, she may not know exactly what she's going to talk about in the moment, but she gets in front of that mic and it all becomes so clear. And I love it.
I'm very grateful for that. So thank you, everyone, for being here with us. Thank you, Raphael, for being you. And thank you for telling your friends. Thank you for making comments. Thank you for sharing this link with others. Thanks for coming to our meetups and to our workshops if you live close by. And thanks for coming to our retreats that we do here in the Northwest. We just love having you in our lives. Thank you. Feel a hug. And until next time, know that you're loved.
And we'll see you soon. And it just dawned on me that if anyone here would like to have us come to do a program or a retreat or whatever in your neighborhood, please call us and we'll see what we can do.
That's a great idea. That is a great idea. We have done that many times, and we have a little checklist and those little things that will help you be more clear about what that looks like, and I'd love to talk to you about it. So take care, everyone.
Meantime, we love you guys.
See you next week. Take care.
Bye.
Bye for now.